Hey, what's going on, guys? J-Mac here. So on Seasons, I've been playing a Crusader. Now, this doesn't mean I'm going to stop putting out Witch Doctor videos and content by any means. In fact, here pretty soon I'm probably going to roll a Witch Doctor even on the Seasons for Paragon grinding. That way I have a little bit of variety so I don't get burnt out. But with that said, I'm going to be putting out some Crusader videos on builds that I've been running and some builds that have been doing well on the leaderboards and things like that. So the first one we're going to go over is the Phalanx Stampede build, which is made possible by this new shield, Unrelenting Phalanx. Phalanx now casts twice. Now, just to clarify, I've had a few people come into my stream recently and ask me if this shield was season only, and it is not. The season only shield is the Condemn shield. This shield will drop on the normal game mode. So say, you decided to opt out of seasons and you just want to keep playing your high Paragon level Crusader, this will drop for you in the normal game mode, which will enable you to run the builds that this works in, which there's a few. This is one of the better ones here, though, with Stampede. So, the Stampede rune, cost 30 Wrath, summon warhorses that deal 400 to 90% weapon damage and have a 30% chance to stun enemies for 2 seconds. So each horse that hits an enemy is going to deal that almost 500% weapon damage and have a chance to stun. Now, normally with the shield unequipped, you summon 3 warhorses, just like that. And then with the shield on, you're going to summon 2 rows, 6 total. So it's going to be a ton of damage and a ton of potential crowd control as well. So let's go ahead and get right into it with the abilities. So again, we're running Stampede. It's going to be our damage dealing ability. And most of the time we're just going to be spamming this. We're going to run Shield Glare Divine Verdict. Basically, you get the crowd control out of Shield Glare, which is always nice, and then blinded enemies take 20% more damage for 4 seconds. And this is off of cooldown constantly because we're already stacking a ton of cooldown reduction to get Akarat's Champion at 100% uptime. So this could be a few different things. Really, with the rest of the build, how it's set up, you don't need Wrath in this slot, so you don't need to run Zealous Glare, but you could easily run something like Bombardment. You would probably run the Impactful Bombardment rune more than likely because we are stacking physical damage, but I much prefer the 20% extra damage here. We're going to run Provoke, Too Scared to Run. It's a Wrath generator. It also has a pretty nice crowd control effect to it. Steed Charge Endurance for the 3 seconds on the horse. Akarat's Champion Prophet. There's really no other runes to run. In lower difficulties you could run other runes potentially, but Prophet, the armor gain and the toughness is just way too good not to run it, especially if you don't have the Unity combo yet for solo Greater Rifts. Laws of Valor Unstoppable Force. This is pretty important. As much as I would like to run critical here, you really need that extra Wrath cost reduction. So that's very good, and we're going to run that in tandem with Long Arm of the Law to increase the active effect of all laws by 5 seconds. Obviously going to run Lord Commander here, so damage dealt by Phalanx is increased by 20%. Phalanx here, pretty obvious. And then we get a little cooldown reduction to Steed Charge also, which isn't bad. Finery, we're running a ton of sockets, so we get a nice armor and damage boost there. And then finally Heavenly Strength, so we can run a two-handed weapon. Let's take a quick look at the gear, and then we'll go over the legendary gems. So for the weapon, we got the Heart Slaughter. This rolls up to 30% physical damage now, which this is a physical build, so this is one of the better weapons in this setup. The best weapon is probably going to be a Furnace for you, though, if you have one. Currently, I don't have one on Seasons, unfortunately, so I'm stuck with this Heart Slaughter for now. Baleful Remnant is another potential option, but I think that Heart Slaughter and Furnace are both going to be better than that. And I had weapon damage on this for a good while, but the way my gear is set up currently, I needed that 10% cooldown reduction. But if you're running a Gogok of Swiftness ranked up to 25 in one of your jewelry sockets, then very easily can, play around with that and maybe ditch it on your weapon and get it somewhere else or wherever. You just want to get to that permanent Akarat's Champion. So however you do it, just make sure you're there. But this is definitely an option to get there, because really in this build it's very easy to keep 15 stacks of this gem active at all times. So we got that. We're going to run 6 pieces of cons, so it's actually 5 pieces with the Ring of Royal Grandeur. So this is the ring right here with cooldown reduction. We've got the boots with Phalanx damage, the pants, chest piece, shoulders, and then the gloves. Now, again, this is Seasons, so there's a lot of non-optimal rolls on these pieces of gear. For instance, this piece I would much rather have crit damage than vitality currently, but you know, it's you got to kind of just run whatever drops for you. So hopefully we'll get that soon. We're going to run a Leoric's Crown. Increases the effect of any gem socketed into this item by 90%. With the cooldown reduction gem in there, definitely one of the better helmets for Crusader. And honestly, you're going to see this ran in the majority of builds these days. Just because cooldown reduction is so key for the Akarat's champion. And this is the easiest way to get a lot of CDR out of one item. We've got an Ouroboros, mainly just because it's the best amulet that I have currently. To be honest with you, I would probably rather have a physical element damage, crit chance socket amulet opposed to the strength. But this is what we're going to rock for now. We've got strong arm bracers with physical damage and crit chance. These are going to be the best bracers for this build because the horses actually knock back as well with that stun. So this procs constantly. You have pretty close to 100% uptime on this on the majority of mobs. We're going to run a physical Stone of Jordan with a socket. Again, the Unrelenting Phalanx we already went over with cooldown reduction and crit chance. Potentially, this is another item I would like to have Phalanx damage instead of the Vitality here. And then we got the Vigilante belt with cooldown reduction. Definitely one of the better belts, if not the best belt for Crusader. Again, because it's another item that you can get cooldown reduction on. Before, you would almost always have to roll CDR onto your jewelry, onto your rings. And now, with things like the Leoric's Crown and this, you don't have to do that anymore, which opens up those sockets for the legendary gems. Speaking of legendary gems, let's go and take a look at the ones that I'm running currently. So we've got Bane of the Trapped, increased damage against enemies under the effects of control impairing effects by a percentage. And then at rank 25, you gain an aura that reduces the movement speed of enemies within 15 yards by 30%. You pretty much have close to, if not 100% uptime on this. Between the knockback and stun from Stampede, the blind from Shield Glare and Provoke, it's pretty hard not to have this buff on the enemy. One of the best gems in this build by far. We've got Pain Enhancer. Critical hits cause the enemy to bleed for a percentage of your weapon damage as physical over 3 seconds. And then at rank 25 you gain Blood Frenzy, granting 3% increased attack speed for each enemy bleeding within 20 yards. Now, with the gear that I have currently and stacking physical damage for this, because the bleed is a physical ability, I've seen it tick for close to 20 million or so on Elites and Champions, but with better gear it could probably tick way higher than that. Definitely one of the better gems for this build. And then I'm also going to run the Marinade Teardrop of the Star Weaver. Now, even though we're not stacking holy damage, this thing still does a ton of damage, and it procs like crazy because we're hitting the enemy so often with all these horses. So it's still really good, and it's always really solid against Rift bosses especially, because you get that extra smite every 5 seconds on single targets. So that's the 3 I'm running at the moment. You also have the Gogok of Swiftness potentially. I wouldn't run this unless it's rank 25, because at rank 25 you get 1% cooldown reduction per stack, and early on, if you don't have a lot of cooldown reduction rolls on your gear, you may need to run this to get to that permanent Akarat's champion or close to it. So that's definitely an option. And then the Bane of the Powerful is always an option. Gain 20% increased damage after killing an elite pack, and then 15% static damage against elites at rank 25. It's pretty good, like I've said before, universally for all the classes. Every class can utilize this thing, so that is also an option as well. So the affixes on elites and champions to really watch out for are reflect damage is pretty bad. Pretty much when the enemy has a reflect damage shield up, you're going to have to just not cast on them. Just wait till the shield goes down and then cast. Otherwise you're going to kill yourself. The other one being Waller. When the horses hit a wall, they just disappear, kind of break into pieces. I can actually demonstrate it here in town. Like this wall right here, you just see them kind of break into pieces. They do the same thing with the Waller affix. And depending on how narrow of an area you're fighting in, it can completely nerf your damage. So we're going to go ahead and do a level 30 Greater Rift. Now keep in mind, there's been a little bit more server lag here lately than usual. So sometimes when I'm clicking Akarat's champion, it won't cast right away. So there might be a split second of downtime here and there. But honestly, on a level 30 Greater Rift, it's not really going to matter too much with our gear. But once you get into higher Greater Rifts, you're really going to want to try to keep your Prophet Akarat's champion up as much as possible to have that toughness. And with this build, I've done a level 34 is the highest I've done so far with the gear that I have. Almost at a 35, I'm pretty sure I could do it. And with proper gearing, with a furnace and unity combo and things like that, and some more crit damage on the pieces that where I need it, I'm pretty confident that you can push up to close to 40, if not 40 greater rifts with this build. So anyways, guys, let's go and get into it. I'm going to turn my mic off for the gameplay portion of the video. Hope you enjoy it. There you go, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.